When most Americans think of an outsource firm, Brad, they think of technical competence. They think of having a resource to do either additional work or take off work for some U.S. employees. They don't think of culture.
What I realized is, like, when you treat people well and you support their growth path, that they invite other people. We want them to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves, bigger than the P&L of Outsource Access, and myself included. It's human beings fundamentally want to know that they're recognized and that they exist and are doing good work, and they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves.
This is Tom Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to Innovation in Compliance.
So I personally write, welcome messages to all of our frontline employees. And in the Philippines, particularly, they've never had that before because of the hierarchical nature of how a lot of the companies work. And so I'll write a personal message. I have my team assemble the list of all the new hires, and it'll bubble up 10, 15 hours a month sometimes. And I'll admit sometimes some months things have gotten crazy and I've gotten kind of a little bit behind, but I always try and catch up. But I'll write a welcome message and say, hey, James, super excited to have you here. You're working with Tom, from our organization, and super excited. Tell me about your family. Tell me about, your background, and we're here to support you. And we want you to give us feedback and be a part of our journey. And they're blown away by it. And, it usually takes them a couple of days because they're a little embarrassed initially. They're like, how do I write back to the CEO? But then we start having a great interaction. And I have screenshots of all of them that I've done, and I'll ask about their kids and their families and what books are they reading, what podcasts, and we'll send some pictures back. I was doing one the other day, and I was sending a picture of my family. So that sets the foundation of the cornerstone right from the beginning of each hire as a human story, so that they feel recognized and appreciated. And I'll be honest, there's been months and times when I've gotten away from it, when other things have happened, and haven't been disciplined and made sure I got that done. And I can see an impact in the culture, right? When I set that foundation with the new hires, when they get that direct message from the CEO, it changes mindset. And I've seen different cohorts when I didn't get it done like I should have. So I made sure I've stayed disciplined with it. Number 6, growth isn't a buzzword. It's making sure that we have the initiatives in place. When we talk about growth of our employees, right, that can mean a ton of different things, but we have about 8 to 10 branded programs inside of Outsource Access. So when people join our organization, we have a program called SOAR, which is our leadership development program. I actually just saw a chat from our director of training and learning. We have a cohort going through it right now of helping grow their leadership and development capabilities. We have Isof, called In Search Of, that JCL actually came up with in the very beginning, which is everybody's in search of their own unique additional personal growth, whether it's how to put plants down in their yard to financial wellness. So we have speakers come in constantly on people that are in search of other ways to grow and build their skills, learning how to do photography. We brought all those kind of things in. We have our own magazine called Virtual Success, where we showcase all of our employees. You can go to our website at outsourceaccess.com and go and learn. You can see our staff magazine, but it's so fun to do. We put our VA of the year, who's voted on by our employees and our clients, on the front cover. And you flip through it, and it's just a showcase of our employees. We bring them in and doll them up. They have, makeup and photos, and we tell about their journey, and it's a big culture book. We have our own podcast that we kind of showcase our employees. When I go over there, I sit down and do usually 25 to 30 personal interviews with our staff, and put them all over our website. So they're all elements that let them know that they're recognized, right? That they're not just another number, right? That they're not. I was doing an RFP actually for one of these big companies one time. So I was like, what is this actually like to try and work with a huge behemoth? And in the RFP, Tom, they wanted to know like how many minutes we let people go to the bathroom, right? That's the opposite of what we try to establish, right, at Outsource Access. Obviously, we've got compliance and accountability and so forth we got to do to perform, but we're trying to create an environment where people can grow and flourish and, what we call becoming a 2.0, version, of themselves. Number 7, celebration is a system, right? Not random acts of celebration, but if you go look at our corporate chat and the things that we do, we have welcome kits that everybody receives, and they take videos and open it up, and it's got their badge in it, and it's got their shirt in it, their branded logo shirt, just like I'm wearing right now. So that they feel a part of our culture, and it's got a whole bunch of other goodies and kits for them and their families. For Halloween, we have a big Halloween party. We bring everybody's kids in so they can do trick or treat in our office. We do a Mother's and Father's Day pampering for all the mothers and fathers, and do things to pamper and take care of them. Huge year-end parties, throughout the year. We have tons of anniversaries. So it's a lot of things to consistently make celebration, not just, hey, once a year you get a quick little, birthday bonus, but something that people get to experience throughout, the year. Number 8, getting closer to the end here, giving back is built in. And I've referenced this a little bit before, which is, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And anybody here that hasn't heard them, and your audience, I'm sure maybe probably pretty familiar with them, but I frankly wasn't. And so I got asked to go speak at the UN headquarters in New York as a part of the Entrepreneurs Organization to seeing how we could bring the SDGs to the entrepreneurial community. And, basically it's 17, specific frameworks that touch every element of humanity and the environment. And it creates a framework that we can have our staff. So, I think you shared this back to me, and I hadn't thought of it that way, Tom, of like being a listen up culture, right? Where we're not just telling people like how, hey, this is what, you should like for culture. And a lot of times companies have their own, pet projects that they want to push their staff to, like Habitat for Humanity, which are all great, right? But let the employees tell you what they're passionate about. So every quarter we send a survey out and say, which of the 17, SDGs are you most passionate about? Is it zero hunger? Is it, life on land? Is it, zero poverty? We let them vote on it. And then we do initiatives and we fund it. And then we take a whole team. And every time I go, I'm a part of those as well. I mean, we've planted hundreds of trees to offset carbon emissions, and also in the mangroves that help present when they have typhoons over there in the beach areas. We've, done tons of relief efforts for different other things that have happened with earthquakes if they kind of occur from time to time. When I was over there most recently, probably one of the most impactful, Tom, was we went and visited. And initially we were just going to a center that supported children with cancer, pediatric cancer. It was a very humble facility, as you can imagine, that a man and his wife had started a number of years ago. And people would come 8 to 10 hours to come there because it was one of the only ones that would help them. And initially we were going there to, just provide some food and entertain the kids and so forth. And I ended up finding out that they were about to lose their building because the landlord had a major financial incident happen and needed to sell the building. And so I pulled our HR director aside and we kind of gathered and we decided that we were going to fund that building for them or help fund it. So I committed to actually give, I think 30-40% of the cost. And then we motivated our employees and we helped raise funds and their tickets they were doing for a big event. And we actually helped save that building for them, for those 200 kids. So it's not just words, it's something we do. And we have heart and kind of engage our employees. Again, we want them to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves, bigger than the P&L of Outsource Access and myself included, that we're trying to have more purpose. And the last two here, I'll get recognition goes public. And I kind of talked about this a little bit, but it's celebrating our staff with our podcasts, with our spotlights, with things that we want to celebrate. And I'll tell you a thing, and I learned this actually from Bern Harnish, one of the founders of EO, at an event. It was actually a couples event my wife and I went to. And he said, try this. He said, a lot of times when we give accolades to employees or even our children, it's one way. It's like, Tom, you crushed it this month. You did a great job for this client. Thanks so much. Keep it up. And then we move on, right? We don't pause and say, but Tom, tell me how you did it. Like, how'd you pull that off? Like, how did you make that happen? And so I went from that conference and came back and immediately. And so I would do that a lot. On our big chat board, if I run into one of our clients or, they have feedback, I'd do a shout out, and say, hey, Rika, fantastic job of what you did and made happen. And so the next time I said, but tell us how you did it. And so I posted, and Tom, she wrote a novel. This young woman wrote a novel, grew up in a small village in the Philippines. And I said, well, how did you pull off such great work for your client? She had read everything about Henry Ford. Like, she had read books, knew him in and out. And for some reason, she had connected with Henry Ford. And that was a lot of her inspiration. So it gave her a platform to showcase kind of how she accomplished something. And then we started a How I Did It book. So I have my HR take those and copies and paste them every time somebody does the How I Did It, and we put it in a book, and it becomes like a part of our culture book. So when someone wants to come work for us, we don't just have core values on the wall. We say, hey, listen to our own employees in their own words of how they pull things off. So the How'd You Do It kind of initiative, and I'll give credit to Vern. And I did it with my daughter too. She plays softball, and last time that we went to her softball game, she had an amazing hit. I'm like, Ella, normally I just tell her one way, but I said, how'd you pull that off? Well, she goes, Dad, remember out in the yard when you made me actually shoot a video as if I was instructing a bunch of other kids of like how to hit? Like, that really helped me. So it's the little things unpack, and it lets you know what are the things, because a lot of times in companies, we think we know what moves the needle for our staff, and we think we know like why and how they do things and what they're motivated by. But by doing that, it unpacked another layer of how we can support our staff and celebrate, the ways that they go about accomplishing. And the last one, number 10, more to it, is, client experience equals, VA experience multiplied. And so it's very important, for us that we choose clients that are a right fit for our culture as well, right? We want to make sure that, sometimes people have a mentality and they don't have the proper respect and mindset around, our staff in the Philippines. So we're very choosy on who we work with and make sure that they're respecting our team and, want to support them in their engagement and their growth. And so we make sure that we're protective of the client experience, and we won't have a problem firing a client, right? If they aren't treating, and we have one client that, I heard some recordings that some of our HR sent us of what he was saying and how he's talking. I'm like, boom, we're done, right? That's not how we're going to operate. We want an environment where they embrace our staff and want to engage them and bring them a part of the journey. And, I was talking before, we have one client, a painting company called Hyler Painting up in Philadelphia, stepping down this path. They've never used offshore and outsourcing, right? They're kind of a, painting commercial services, but they went down the path. Saw me speak at an event, and the very first staff they hired, Rika, had such an impact on their business. She helped write all their playbooks and processes because they didn't have those done. Then she helped do integrations with their Salesforce instance with all their other applications. Then she started to help doing graphic design and took that over. Such an impact that she was actually rated as the employee of the year by all of their local employees in the United States, right? Because of the impact. And they ended up hiring a second and a third one as a part of that. So we want clients like that, right? That embrace, and we want to be a part of their culture as much as they're a part of ours. And it's a whole different mindset than most people think of this as, a one-off project on Fiverr or Upwork or a call center, right? These are highly competent, engaged people that are just a part of your organization working side by side, with your team. And then to see the impact on their end, the big smiling faces. I saw one client, one of our VAs, with their birthday, and our VA was showing us, a birthday cake via Zoom call. So that's the kind of connection we like to create, so they can have a path of growth, buying cars, building homes. Jay Sell, who I mentioned, she was able to actually buy a property and build a home and have access to that in the Philippines she wouldn't have otherwise. So that kind of rounds it out. I know there's a lot to go through, but hopefully that helps to unpack the fabric of a lot of this culture and foundation elements that changes perception maybe some folks have.
Well, Brad, I think most folks understand that sort of communication on a one-to-one basis, but you've literally taken this culture as a living system to 400 to 500 different people. How do you make this stick?
Consistency. It's just like anything in life, right? It's whether it's keeping weight off or implementing culture, right? It's consistency in making sure that you got your policies and approaches that you don't allow to fade out. And look, hey, we're human beings, and certainly not the perfect organization, and have lots of things we're constantly trying to fix. And I tell you, being in the human being business, especially when you have everyone kind of distributed and so forth, but it really is being consistent. And we actually renamed our department. Instead of HR, we call it people and culture instead of HR, because HR feels like this very administrative type of thing, but it's people and culture. And that's in essence is who we are as a company. And so it's the team, and it's a larger than normal team than most companies have. I think we got 8 to 10 people in our people and culture department that are constantly listening to our employees, getting feedback, getting surveys. What can we do next to help grow and develop? And we have a whole, a bunch of different social groups, and we have one called Fur Babies. So all of our employees that have pets, we have a whole special one that came back from a survey that people had asked. And we try to have events distributed throughout the country to kind of support as well. So it's consistency and having a commitment to doing these types of initiatives, not as just a one-off, but a fundamental part of realizing this is critical to your business success long-term, right? Today's world more than ever, work is fluid. We got turnover more than ever. People can work for companies remotely more than ever. It's a whole different ballgame. And so being able to attract the right kind of talent and then keep that talent is rooted in culture, more than ever, right? Do they wake up every day and their feet hit the ground wanting to go do what they do for your organization and your business? And so that's the key for us, is just commitment to it, branding it, committing the right kind of people and resources, and then constantly having our ear to the ground to our employees to tell us, what are we doing well? What else would you like to have happen? So we can constantly, listen to them as our customer.
Well, Brad, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you, if any of our listeners wanted to connect with you or find out more about Outsource Access, what would be the best place or places for them to go?
Certainly, Tom. And kind of practicing what we preach is, look, I'm very much about education in this space. I've got a chance to speak for hundreds of organizations across multiple continents, and just love educating. And whether people work with us at Outsource Access or otherwise, just want people to understand this world and how much of an impact it can have to scaling and growing their businesses and changing the life of their own employees by helping get them in their highest and best value, and then the impact you can have on these individuals in these other countries. And it's not just low level work. I mean, we're talking about high level, competent type of work. We've got staff that are doing controller level work for a private equity firm that we placed recently, to people that are managing very sophisticated software for our clients and doing routing and logistics and so forth. So just sharing in that message. So in that vein, one of the things people struggle with is, where do I begin in this journey? And so if you just send an email, you can do it on your phone. If you got it there, don't have to worry about sending any kind of message and so forth to tools, TOOLS, tools at outsourceaccess.com. And just put compliance in the subject line, so we'll know where it came from our podcast here. We'll send you a couple things. We'll send you a bunch of resources, but one is kind of our 2-question exercise template that really, it's super simple. And I keep getting asked, sounds like it should be more, but we've done it with startups to multi-$100-million businesses. That helps people figure out where to begin this journey, both for themselves and their key managers. And it has a really interesting byproduct effect on culture by giving people voice in your organization to figure out where those constraints are. So we'll send you a whole framework on how to do that. And it has included in there over 700 tasks that we've pulled out, over 4 million hours of work that we've done over the last 6 years. You can kind of go through and see what is the types of things that these individuals can do, organized by marketing, operations, sales, compliance, legal, HR. So we'll send that to you. And then also for those that are interested from a culture standpoint, because I've done a lot of people have heard about the culture we built. We actually created a culture guidebook that if you want to implement some of the things that we've developed here, we'll send you a whole guidebook on some of the elements we've done that maybe you want to implement and look at exploring in your organization. So tools at outsourceaccess.com, put compliance in the subject line. We'll shoot that your way. You can always go visit us directly at outsourceaccess.com. Tons of videos and content taking you behind the scenes and the journey of our organization. And you can book a complimentary discovery call. We'll do an automate and delegate roadmap, free for you if you want to explore it. And just like this, I've actually got a video podcast we've launched called How Outsourcing Works. And so you go to howoutsourcingworks.com and I'll take you right to our video page where I interview a bunch of businesses and they share exactly how they're integrating these individuals, into their organization. You can see actually an episode that Tom and I did, work that our staff has done for him.
Well, Brad, thanks so much. And I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Check us out. Love to hear your journey.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the award-winning Innovation and Compliance.